Welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and today's story is it's happening slowly but surely. I've always talked about death by 1,000 cuts. They never make, or they're trying not to make too big of a bold move all at once, but it's happening slowly but surely. A U.S. judge in Cook County, Illinois, just stripped a mother of all of her parental rights and her ability to see her 11-year-old son over her vaccination status or lack thereof. We'll get into that story in just a moment, but if you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and smash on that subscription button, like this video, comment on this video. Your interactions on this channel and this video helps with the exposure greatly and defeats the algorithm used to suppress any and all videos and or content contrary to the narrative. And go ahead and smash on that notification bell, as well as I've been notified that once again YouTube is messing with the notifications of many of my subscribers, and they're not aware of the content that I'm putting out, or not realizing it, which I'm doing at least 2 videos a week at minimum. So if you don't get the notifications or aren't aware of it, it's because of that suppression. But you can try to bypass that by continually checking my channel, checking the notification bell. So let's get into this story about what happened in Cook County, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Let's roll. So here's the story according to Fox 32 in Cook County, Illinois, outside of Chicago. Cook County judge strips mother of parental rights over her vaccination status. I'll read some of the article, but let me just go ahead and play the video for you.
Mother says that a Cook County judge has taken away her parental rights after learning that she's not vaccinated.
Dane Placco is live at Daily Plaza with this story. Dane?
Yeah, and what all parties agree is a very unusual, if not unprecedented step. A Cook County judge here at the Daily Center has stripped a Chicago mom of her parenting time because she's refused to get the COVID vaccination shot.
I miss my son more than anything. It's been very difficult. I haven't seen him since August 10th.
August 10th, that's the day Rebecca Firlit appeared in court via Zoom along with her ex-husband for a child support hearing involving their 11-year-old son. Now, the two share custody, or had shared custody, in parenting time, 50-50. She says out of the blue, Cook County Judge James Shapiro asked her whether she'd been vaccinated. She told him no, she had not, because she's had bad reactions to vaccines in the past. Judge Shapiro then ordered that she be stripped of all parenting time with her son until she gets vaccinated. Over the past 2 weeks, she's been able to talk to him on the phone and via video call, but she has not seen her son in person. Firlit is now appealing that order, saying the judge has no business taking away her parenting rights simply because she's not vaccinated.
I think it's wrong. It had nothing to do with what we were talking about, and he was placing his views on me and taking my son away from me.
But in this case, you have a judge without any matter before him regarding the parenting time of the child deciding, oh, you're not vaccinated, you don't get to see your child until you are vaccinated. That kind of exceeds his jurisdiction.
Now, we talked to the attorney representing the father, Jeffrey Leving. You'll be hearing from him next hour. He says they were as surprised by this as anyone, but they support that decision by the judge, saying that given the pandemic, the child should be protected from an unvaccinated mother. We also reached out to the judge and the chief judge's office. They say they cannot comment on this case because it is ongoing. Live at the Daily Center, Dane Placco, Fox 32 Chicago.
So you heard the story. I'll be more than glad to put the link to this Fox 32 story coming out of Chicago in the description box below. So feel free to go ahead and read the article. No need for me to regurgitate what you just heard from that video. So let's get into it. So you just heard the story there of a mother, Rebecca Firlit, there in Chicago, or Cook County, Illinois, just had her parental rights stripped over the vaccination status. I know I've done a couple of videos recently talking about how bad of a dystopian society Australia has descended into. But it's not just Australia, it's not just France, it's not just parts of the UK. Things are also happening all over the world. They're trying little things, and it's coming to the United States as well. I did a video on a bill that Congress is introducing to try to limit what those who have not been vaccinated can or cannot do in terms of travel, literally there is an attempt to keep you from being able to go anywhere unless if you've been jabbed. You heard Rebecca's situation. She hasn't been jabbed, not for any political purposes, no conspiracy theories. She has legitimately, I have to take it as a fact, this is her statement, nothing's been proven to contradict it. She's had vaccines in the past. She's not an anti-vaxxer or anti-science. She has had vaccines at some point in her history and has had a bad reaction. And we do know, it is a matter of fact that while it is extremely rare, there have been some rare cases of side effects and or adverse reactions to some of the jabs, whether it was AstraZeneca and or even Pfizer and or Moderna. It's been reported on the CDC website. You can go check it out. It is rare, but there are certain individuals who may have a rare condition and or adverse reaction to certain otherwise proven effective medications. That's why not just anyone can take certain birth control pills, for instance, because it can have adverse side effects to certain individuals depending on your medical condition, which is why you should always consult with your medical doctor, have them take a look at your medical history, your biology, and or what you may or may not be susceptible to that may be unique to yourself. But I digress. This mother, for medical purposes, could not take the vaccine and or is not taking the chance of her having another adverse reaction to a vaccine. And the judge, out of the blue, despite the fact that this was a hearing on child support, had nothing to do with her vaccine status, had nothing to do with the child safety. It was all over child support. And this Judge Shapiro asks, hey, out of the blue, have you been vaccinated? And of course she says no due to X, Y, and Z, and he just strips her of her rights. Like my girl Rhonda Mary once said, as it pertains to this story, if this isn't what the Second Amendment was made for, I don't know what is, because you have the government literally coming in and violating a parent's right to raise and be around her kid over a vaccination and or a medical decision that should be hers based upon her unique condition. So we need to plaster this Judge Shapiro's face and her name out there for those who do live in Cook County, Illinois. If he comes up for re-election on the next ballot in an election, you need to pay attention and get him out of there. And this is a dangerous precedent, and I hope that the Supreme Court in Illinois overturns this with her appeal, because this is not right. By no indication is she sick or has she contracted the virus yet, and you can't assume that she will. The other thing is the child's 11. There's been zero mention of his medical condition that would indicate that he is somehow at risk, because we know for a fact that while yes, just as there have been adverse reactions to the jab itself, there have been kids who have succumbed to the Modella virus. But just like with the adverse reactions to the jab, kids represent an extremely small minority. In fact, it is an absolute fact, even by the CDC's own standards, that the younger you are, the lower your chances of adverse risk to the Modella virus is, whether you get the jab or not. For those who are 19 years and under, your survival rate is 99.99998%, if I'm not mistaken, or 99.99997%. That's a lot of nines after the decimal point of your survival rate. It is extremely strong the younger you are. And then even when you come up a couple of extra decades from people between the ages of 20 to 49, your survival rate is 99.9997%. Extremely high survival rate for those who are young and otherwise healthy, not obese, not suffering from type 2 diabetes and or some other extreme immune compromised health conditions, cancer, leukemia, etc. That's just a fact. In fact, there's also a fact that more young people have died in either car accidents and or drownings over the course of this pandemic. From start of the pandemic to now, more kids have died in drowning situations and or car accidents than from the Modella virus. Are you going to start banning pools? Mr. I'm not too sure what his last name is, her ex-husband, but like, do you drive? Are you keeping this kid out of the car? Because he has a greater chance of dying in a car accident than he does of the Modella virus. Do you have a pool? Are you taking them to a pool? Do you have easy access to a pool? What are you doing to protect them from that? It just doesn't make any sense. Young people are shown, by and large, by the facts that they are the overrepresentation of the positive cases, but let's not confuse positive cases with severe symptoms, hospitalizations, and or death. You can test positive, but under the age of 49, the highest chance of probability is that you test positive and you're at best asymptomatic at about 88% based upon all studies done, whether it was a homeless shelter in Boston, New York hospital back during the pandemic, and a study done in Southern California in Stanford University. They do random testing size of the population because if you're sick, you're not going to get tested, or you weren't likely to get tested early on in the pandemic before it became a regular thing at your CVS clinic, etc. And so when they did random samplings, they saw that the positivity rate with asymptomatic cases amongst people under the age of 50 was as high as 88%. Within the smaller high next percentage of those testing positive having mild symptoms, at worst a fever, with hospitalization among that age group being extremely rare. In fact, it's people over the age of 50, and especially when you hit 60, do the adverse reactions skyrocket in terms of hospitalizations when you get test positive. Not to mention those who are obese are also the ones representing the overwhelming majority of hospitalizations. So if this kid does not fall in that small category of young people who are obese, suffering from immune compromised diseases and or pre-existing conditions, there's no threat to him. And the fact that this father is participating in this, it's also a very much, pardon my language, but a dick move on his part, even though they did not ask for this. And by all indications, according to the story, the father and his attorney were surprised by this. They never brought the issue up whatsoever. This was purely financial, but he's supporting this. He's allowed the child to go without physical contact with his mother for a little over 2 weeks now. It's been since August 10th, August 11th. And shame on him as well, although his name is protected, and I'm fine with that. But Judge Shapiro needs to be blasted. But this is hitting the U.S. Hopefully this is an isolated case, but I'm afraid it isn't when you look at everything going on around the country as it pertains to the craziness of this pandemic. And what people don't realize is, yes, this is a real virus that's going around and affecting certain people, but let's be real about the threat level. It's not the same for everyone. But what the media and the government is trying to make you believe is that it is the Black Plague. It is the equivalent of the Spanish flu, in that it's a roll of the dice, like Russian roulette, if you get it, and it's not. I mean, to some degree, the odds will forever be in your favor if you are under 50 and are healthy. You eat right, exercise daily. You have a highly likelihood of, at worst, testing positive with some mild cases. It is those who are elderly, those who are obese, those who are immune compromised that are of greater risk, and their resources need to be diverted to those. But what people don't realize is that those in the media, those in the corporate America and governments, countries, are taking advantage of this very real situation, over exaggerating it, creating a crisis and or exaggerating a crisis for the purpose of breaking the law or undoing constitutional rights and your liberties over and over again. They're trying to break the law constantly by creating or exaggerating a crisis, giving an excuse for their actions and giving a reason for the population to submit, bend the knee, because when an individual or a population is scared and fearful, they will do whatever it is they need to do to obtain some measure of safety, even if it's an illusion. But we need to rise up, unite, and stand together against this tyranny. As far as companies, they're using this to their advantage to rake money hands over fist. biggest redistribution of wealth we've ever seen over the course of this pandemic. Over $500 billion, and or if you're in Europe, over 500 billion euros has been gained by the richest 1% in the continent of Europe, and then here in the United States. The richest 1% have seen on average a net total sum gain of over $500 billion. Biggest wealth transfer ever. Why? Because the little guys, the little mom and pop stores, small business owners couldn't compete because they couldn't open up their businesses, unlike the big box chain stores. So all resources were diverted to and or transferred to the big box chain stores, restaurants, and or establishments. And they were able to afford their rent. The smaller businesses, mom and pop stores, couldn't afford their rent. Look at what's happening with the landlords. Unless if you're rich and elite, you can't afford the moratorium that's been put on eviction notices and or rent payments. And it's just insane what's happening with that. Companies like Facebook, Google, Twitter have been able to use this as an excuse to further dominate the market, further control the narrative that fits the agenda that they want by using this pandemic to control what you hear, what you see, what can be determined as fake news and or misinformation, and use that as a way of stomping out any and all information or facts that is contrary to their narrative. I remember during the start of this pandemic, we were told that don't listen to your friend on Facebook that you went to high school with, your high school buddy, who may have gone to college afterwards, maybe not, but they don't have a degree in medicine, virology. Listen to your doctor, listen to the experts. And yet when experts come and discuss their facts, their cases as it pertains to certain medications, and if it's going contrary to the narrative that is the big push to everyone get the jab, everyone get this jab, then they silenced it, they canceled it, they removed it off the internet, and you're not allowed to talk about it. They've used this as an excuse to control the narrative, control the discourse, control what you know, control what you're allowed and not allowed to hear. And they've been able to dominate the narrative that way. So this has been used as a big pull, and people need to wake up and realize it. So that's what's happening. Pay attention to what's going on. I'll keep trying to report on stories and or issues just like this in my next video. So stay alert, stay tuned to what's going on. Stay tuned to my channel as I try to drop these cases of what's going on, because we need to push back. So again, if you live in Illinois, you definitely need to stand up. Press to your elected officials, although I wonder, because Chicago is strongly liberal, will they see this as an overreach by and large? Definitely some of the rural areas probably could definitely back this, but you definitely need to pay attention to what's happening. Yes, what's going on in Australia is extremely bad, but there's a lot of other extremely bad measures happening here in the United States that we need to stay on top of before we definitely descend into a dystopian utopia. V for Vendetta seems to just be playing out almost perfectly right now. It's to the point where we might be in a cold civil war over a lot of these measures, whether it be lockdowns and or the jab itself, and the constitutionality of the coercion to all comply to what's going on. But that's my video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. This is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and I'm out. Peace.